One of the most powerful intersections in life really is when we do come face to face with the questions we don't know. And this picture, this image of this man jumping into the swimming pool, if you can't see it, he's happy as can be. The pool is plenty deep, it's warm water, he's going to be safe when he goes in. But what's the most dangerous of all situations for him is if he doesn't know how to swim, and he doesn't know that he doesn't know how to swim. Am I right? That's the worst of all worlds. And in life, that's the worst of all worlds. And what I'm going to suggest is that we have to figure out those questions before they figure us out. How many of you have seen this image before? Okay, you know the story then. How many see the old woman? How many see the young woman? I'm in Scandinavia a few years ago, put this image up in a leadership development program, asked the audience, how many see the old woman? How many see the young woman? Everybody's getting it. 10 minutes later, there's this guy in the back of the audience. He stands up, and he's like, Gregersen, I don't get it. And he's mad at me. He's like, I don't see an old woman in that picture. I don't see a young woman in that picture. All I see is a great big bear eating a woman's head. And I looked at it, and if you look carefully, there's a big bear on the right eating a woman's head on the left. Now, the problem was, I thought I knew what was in that picture, old woman, young woman. I wasn't paying attention to anything else. I didn't know what I didn't know. And it came back in a humorous way to bite me. But sometimes it's not so humorous. About 2 months ago, well, let's go back even further than 2 months ago. Let's go back to when I was 3.5 years old. I was in Richfield, Utah at my grandparents' farm. I was standing in a driveway going out to the main road. They were putting my 42-year-old father into the station wagon because he had a heart attack. And when they drove away, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I didn't know if he was coming back. I frankly didn't know what was really going on. He lived, he came back. He had a major heart attack 15 years later, and then 15 more years later, he passed away from a major heart attack. When I became an adult, I was committed to not having a heart attack. I ate right, I exercised all the time, I knew the routine, and I did it routinely. But then, 2 months ago, I was in Southern California giving a speech like this. 7:30 in the morning, I go down to the ballroom to set up the equipment. I feel this heavy pressure on my chest. And I feel really anxious, so I'm just nervous about what's going on here. The pressure gets heavier. 5 minutes before I'm up to be on the stage like this, it is just really heavy. I walk outside, I say a quick prayer. I feel an image in my head of, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, I'm going to be okay. I go back in. Somehow the pressure comes off. I give my speech. When the pressure comes back on, as soon as I'm done, I realize something's not quite right here. But I didn't know what. Then my neck started to hurt. 10 minutes later, I walked back to my hotel room. I started to feel nauseous. I walked through the door. My wife was there. She looked at me and she's like, "You do not look well." I said, "I don't feel well." I sat down. I went on the internet. I looked up heart attack symptoms. Tick, 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 tick. And then I knew I was having a heart attack. She raced me to the hospital. And then, once we got there, I told them, it was hard to get the words out of my mouth, "I think I'm having a heart attack." Then I sat down, and when she started to ask me the questions about what was going on, I completely froze, as if I was a 3.5-year-old standing in that driveway watching my father drive away. I broke down, I cried, my wife answered all the questions. Miraculously, 24 hours later, 3 stents later, 2 blocked arteries, completely healed. I feel better today than I did 10 years ago. That's the miracle in it all. But what I didn't know, almost killed me. I knew what to do to the question, how do I avoid having a heart attack? But I had avoided the question, what are the signs of a heart attack? Because I thought I was invincible about this one. I'm not going to have one, therefore I didn't care about knowing what it was going to be. And here's my suggestion for what it's worth. The questions that will most provoke us, that will make us feel the most uncomfortable in life, are the ones that we're avoiding and the ones that we work really hard to stay away from. Now, the important and difficult job is never to find the right answers, it's to find the right questions. And Peter Drucker said after that, there's nothing more dangerous and sometimes useless than the right answers to the wrong questions. I had the right answer to the question, what do you do to avoid a heart attack? But I did not have the right question, which was, what is happening when you have a heart attack? I was clueless. This woman's name is Kathleen Kispin, excuse me. She works in the radiology department at the Pittsburgh Children's Medical Center. Her dominant question, imaging children with CAT and MRI scans, her dominant question is basically, how can I get the best technical image of these little children coming through the system? It's a great question, right? Well, here's the challenge. Every child, not every child, 80% of the children going through these CAT scans and MRI scans, you know, they have to be sedated in order to go through those CAT scanning machines. Anybody here had a CAT or MRI scan? Anybody want to go back? How many would love to go back and have it again? It's no fun. Now, here's what happened, is that Doug Dietz, who worked for GE Healthcare, knew Kathleen, and basically they were trying to figure out collectively, how could we do this better? How could we stop having all these children be chemically sedated to go through these machines? So they went out and they did some work. They went out to preschools to figure out how do you process children in a preschool. They went to children's museums. They went as if they were children through hospitals to understand what it's like to be that small. And at the end of all that work, they came back with a solution that they called the GE Healthcare Adventure Series, where they turned the thing into an adventure. Can you see that? It could be going to space, it could be going underwater, it could be going on a pirate ship. And from the start to the end, it's an adventure. And these kids are excited. They're into it. They get pirate hats on this one when they come up to the hospital. And then when they're through at the end of it, when they leave, what are they telling their parents on the way home? When can I come back? Now, what Kathleen told me was, after all this hard work, their initial question was, how can we get the best technical image here? By the end of it, it changed the question. How can we make children feel emotionally safe in a hospital environment? And she said, I never thought of that question before we started this. But by the end of it, it's the dominant question that drives this kind of an experience to make this safe for kids. It's powerful. So, got a problem? How many in here have a problem? A problem you don't have a solution to. Personal problem. We all have problems, am I right? Here's my suggestion. Question everything about that problem. Whatever the problem is, question everything. And here's the beginning point. A guy named Stuart Brand, who founded the thing called the Whole Earth Catalog before the internet was the internet. Very innovative guy. Actually, Steve Jobs knew him well. Stuart Brand told me a few months ago, he said, when I wake up in the morning, here's what he says. How many things am I going to be dead wrong about today? Is that an interesting question to wake up to? And a couple of months ago, I was telling this story, and Hasso Plattner, the founder of SAP, a big software firm, was sitting in the front row, and he said, I do that too. You know, it's like, how many things am I wrong about today? That's the beginning point of figuring out a better question for my problem. How many of you would be willing to give yourself 4 minutes to ask better questions about your problem? Worth doing? How many of you ever spent 4 minutes asking nothing but questions about your problem? Here's what I've done for the last couple of years. The problem could be personal, could be professional. It could be a relationship issue, it could be a work issue, it could be a school issue, it could be a spiritual issue, whatever the problem is. About every day or every other day, I spend 4 minutes writing down nothing but questions about my problem. When you've got a problem, often you go into it, at least I do, with negative emotion. It's like I'm a bit down. But when I write nothing but questions about that problem, nothing but questions, not answers, I don't answer it, nothing but questions, by the end of that 4 minutes, guess what happens? I see the world slightly differently, and my emotions shift usually to something positive. For what it's worth, give it a try. We're at about 6:30 tonight. Before 6:30 tomorrow night, pick a problem, spend 4 minutes. It will make a difference. Give it a whirl. Here we go. Here's my issue. Here's what I care deeply about in terms of my problem, and it relates to kids, and we were all once kids. This little kid's name is Matthew. Matthew was at our house in our backyard playing with this rock, and I was taking the picture. And when I saw Matthew, I realized as soon as I snapped the shot, what's he going to do? He's going to stick his hand right in that hole. Snap the shot. Matthew's hand went right in the hole. Mother screams. Nothing happened. No spiders, nothing in there. But the issue is Matthew was very, very curious. Kids are curious, right? That's what they do all the time. They stick their hands into things. They ask lots of questions. They are the ultimate innovators. They know how to do this stuff. How many of us were once 4 years old? We were all curious at one point. But here's the problem. People are born curious, but they have it pounded out of them. This is the James Watson. He was one of the guys who basically discovered human DNA. They have it pounded out of them. Well, here's one way it gets pounded out. The average student sitting in a classroom asks 6 questions per month sitting in class. Did you realize that? 6 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not 6,006, 6 questions per month. The average teacher in the same classroom asks 6,000 questions per month. What does that little Matthew, curious kid, learn when he's sitting in that classroom? He learns answers matter and do it quick, and he learns to stop asking questions. So here is the challenge. It's a global questioning crisis from my perspective. These kids grow up, they are in school systems where they no longer ask questions, they go into the world that demands questions, and they need to be asking them. So here's my proposal, here's my hope, and I call it the 424 Project. How can we keep children's questions alive between the ages of 4 and 24? That data about 6 questions a month, that happens for kids who are 5 years old in their first sort of school year. It also happens for seniors in high school, and for what it's worth, it happens in universities like this one. It's that few of questions a month. Here's my suggestion. We as adults need to become better and more consistent at asking great questions. Try the 4-minute project as a beginning point in terms of building better questions to solve your problem. At home, when your kids come home, ask them what questions they asked at school today. It's very good to inquire to them. What questions did you ask at school? It's great to ask, what did you learn? But also ask, questions did you ask? A woman named Arit Gadish, who's now the chairwoman of Bain, she had parents at home who valued questions. When she was in high school, one of her teachers wrote in her book, Arit always asks those 2 or 3 questions. Always asks those 2 or 3 questions, because Arit's hand always went up when the teacher said, any questions? This woman's name is Soraya Salti. She grew up in the Middle East. Her parents were very faithful parents, and they taught her how to take leaps of faith. She now runs an organization called InJazz. It helps 180-plus young people across the Middle East and Northern Africa to have hope, to get better education, to have a future. And what Soraya Salti's parents taught her was to ask great questions, and whenever Soraya Salti lands in a spot, she always asks, what now? It's like, what am I going to do? She never gives up. She goes forward. She learned how to ask questions and make great impact. The other issue is at school. We know from all kinds of research on innovators that innovators, when they went through school growing up, they often had project-centric work. It could have been Montessori schools. It could have been any school where projects are the focus of what we're doing. And so it doesn't have to be an expensive school, though. A little while ago, last year, I was in Cape Town. Anybody from Cape Town out there? Not a few, maybe. I've got a hand going. This was in Q Town near Cape Town. This school had the barbed wire around it, barbed around every single part of it in order to protect it. And in one room of that school, it's called Room 13, where kids learn how to do art. They finish their schoolwork, they go to that room, they can do art. The kids run the room, 6 to 13 years old. They've got a president, a finance officer, a person who runs the materials. They hire an artist to teach them. They pay the artist, and they have to sell their stuff and make something of it. It's a great sort of system. Now, one of these girls, not in Q-Town, but in one of these Room 13s in Soweto, a similar project, I was there and walked into that room. This little girl was excited. She was painting. She was having lots of fun. the principal came up to me and she basically said, see that little girl over there? About 9 months ago, on the other side of Soweto, her father was beating up her mother. Mother grabbed the kids, was sick and tired of it, left and came and left and went and just got away from it. She came to my school. She was really quiet. She didn't say anything, didn't talk to anybody. And then after 3 months, she ended up coming to room 13 where she learned art. Art opened her up. Art helped her start to ask questions of the world. Art gave her hope. This is not an expensive way to do it, but it's a project-centric way where kids start re-engaging with the world and they start asking questions that matter in the world. So here's my final plea. Make a difference. Wherever we are in the world. I was in China watching and eating dinner with his family. You can't see the picture real clearly, but the grandpa, in his eyes, if you could see it, he loves that little granddaughter. He let her play, he let her explore, he listened to her questions, he paid attention, he valued her questions. I could feel it, I could see it. This is one of our 5 granddaughters. Her name is Stella. I remember taking this picture. When she was looking up at me, I had no idea when I took the image how deeply she was looking. And once I realized it, it's like, wow. Not only is she looking, but what is she asking of me? And if there's any gift I can give to the Stellas of the world, it's that they can keep their questions alive, to keep themselves safe from the dangerous people and the dangerous places and the dangerous future they might work into. So my plea, please, is ask questions yourself as an adult, value them in these children, and help them to go into a world full of challenges with this skill of questioning more powerful than ever before for them to make a difference. Thank you.